Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is oversee. And this verb was suggested by the viewer Luis. Luis, thank you so much for this suggestion. Now let's take a moment and review the definition of this verb. The verb oversee means to supervise a person or their work, and this is most commonly used to describe someone doing that supervision in an official capacity. So you will see this used anytime we're referencing managers, supervisors, again, supervising other people's work. But we'll also see it in connection to officials and what they might be responsible, again, for supervising. But sometimes people will use it to kind of, I would say, be a bit funny. I can remember a number of times when my mom used this to sort of describe her role in making sure all of our various family members were doing sort of their job or what was expected, with my brother and I following through on our chores or responsibilities, as well as making sure that my father did certain actions as well. For now, you should know that oversee is an irregular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms overseen. The past tense of our verb is going to follow the same pattern as it does with the verb see. Pardon me. The past tense form of this verb will be pronounced oversaw. And then the participle has another spelling change. We're going to go back to the E's, add an N, and that forms overseen. So again, same pattern as our verb see. See, saw, seen. Oversee, oversaw, overseen. Now, you might be relieved to know that we do not have additional phrasal verbs, so no new definitions for us to learn. Instead, we can move on and do a little verb tense practice. Today we're going to review the past progressive and the present progressive. First, let me mention that sometimes teachers or textbooks will use the word continuous to describe either of these tenses, and that's just fine. Progressive or continuous mean the exact same thing. I'll explain in a moment why I like to use progressive. But the idea of the past progressive is that we are discussing an action that was ongoing during a completed time in the past. Many times in sentences with the past progressive, we'll have one clause in that verb tense. So we have that ongoing activity, and then there will be a second clause in the simple past tense, and that is the action that interrupts that ongoing activity. And so it is really common to see those used in conjunction. Doesn't mean it always happens. You can just have a sentence with one clause in the past progressive, and that's just fine. So here's the reason I like saying past progressive. I hope you can see two letter P's, which can help you remember that you'll need two parts to make your verb. We're going to use a past form of be, and then we'll use that ing form of the verb. Now, be has two forms in the simple past tense, so we're going to need to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, he, she, or it, will use was, W-A-S, and then the ing form of the verb. But if your subject is you, we, or they, use were, W-E-R-E, and then the ing form of the verb. Let's take a look at an example sentence. Sage Homes Limited was overseeing building work on a house extension when the pipe fell. Here's that great example of we've got the ongoing activity, right? They are in charge. They are responsible. for supervising the work as something was being built upon or extended. And then we've got our interrupting activity, a pipe fell. Now, the first part of the sentence, the subject, our Sage Homes Limited, just the name of a company. And again, this is a sentence I saw in a news report that I thought illustrated the meaning really quite well and gave us a great example of a past progressive sentence. Now let's move on and talk about negative past progressive. To do this, again, we pay attention to our subject. Our subject needs to match the past form of be that comes next. So again, that's was or were. But now we're going to insert not before the ing form of the verb. You might also notice the contraction being used, so was not would become wasn't, or were not can become weren't. Here's another example. He wasn't overseeing a large corporation, but his behavior was just as scrutinized. So here, maybe we're talking about someone who was not in the process of being responsible for a large company or maybe a large group of staff, but nevertheless, people are closely watching and judging what it is he's doing or what he's deciding. Finally, let's talk about making a yes or no question in the past progressive. To do this, we start with our past form of be, whatever form matches our subject, that subject comes next. Then we'll use the ing form of the verb. Here's my last past progressive example. Were you overseeing the fundraising campaign? Right? So we're really asking, were you supervising? Were you responsible for it? Now let's move on and talk about the present progressive. We can use this verb tense to describe actions that are happening right now. We can also use it to describe an action that is ongoing in a time period that is not yet complete. The present progressive also has two P's, and that can help you remember that you'll need two parts to make your verb. You're going to use a present form of be and then the ing form of the verb. We have three forms of be in the present tense, so we've got to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, we'll use am and then that ing form of the verb. If the subject is you, we, or they, we'll use are, A-R-E, and then the ing form of the verb. Finally, if your subject is he, she, or it, use is and then the ing form of the verb. Let's take a look at an example sentence. The state of West Virginia is overseeing school districts in 8 counties for administrative and financial reasons. So here in the United States, most commonly, a school board is the one who oversees a school district. Many times these are elected officials that represent, make sure rules are being followed. People can bring complaints and criticisms to them. They follow kind of very public meeting, they hold public meetings. They follow a lot of specific laws, but sometimes things still don't go so well. And so this sentence is referencing the fact that one U.S. state, here in our example sentence, is now supervising these particular school districts and making, usually they're trying to ensure better performance for the students. But this is ongoing, or it's happening now. Now let's talk about making a negative present progressive sentence. Again, we pay attention to our subject. We use the form of be that matches, then not, and then the ing form of the verb. Now, we can combine are not into the contraction aren't. We can combine is not into the contraction isn't, but there is no contraction for am not. So those should always stay two separate words. Let's take a look at an example sentence. The judge isn't overseeing these specific cases anymore. So maybe someone had been in this particular role, but it is no longer the case. Finally, let's talk about making a yes or no question in the present progressive. To do this, we'll start with our form of be, we'll have our subject, and then our ing form the verb. Here's our last example. Is the academic medical center overseeing the practitioners at the student health center? So this is, again, we're asking about current practices, things that are happening right now. And again, the idea is kind of like the medical department. Are they responsible for monitoring and supervising maybe the doctors in training, the nurses in training who are seeing patients at another facility? Now, let's spend a moment. I normally talk about related words, but I really just have one related word that I thought you might encounter, and that is the noun overseer. This is a person who supervises others, especially workers. An example of this in a sentence might be, Texas lawmakers have created an overseer position to ensure colleges follow the new laws. So again, something pulled from recent headlines describing the job that someone will have to supervise, to ensure that some new rules and regulations are being followed. Thanks again to Luis for suggesting today's verb. I thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.